EX5 Animal Colosseum introduced a ton of crazy new cards and archetypes, with some of them being absolutely meta-defining. And today we're going to be talking about some of the best decks from this set and format. To begin with the cover card of the set and one of the fan favorite archetypes, we have the all new purple and blue MetalGarurumon X line to talk about. This deck and engine is incredibly consistent and is probably one of the best we have ever seen so far. It's able to draw and trash cards very quickly so that it can cycle through the deck very well to find all the pieces you need. It has battle protection in the form of Gabumon X antibody and Garurumon X antibodies inheritable, and it's just so good that it's very easy to achieve because all you have to do is simply just bottom deck 2 cards back from your trash to the bottom of your deck to have that once per turn battle protection. And with that kind of effect, it's almost pretty much giving it pseudo jamming the entire time. I personally highly recommend this deck, especially to new players or those who are trying to get into this format for the very first time, because you can mostly utilize a lot of cards from the Wolf of Friendship starter deck, which is starter deck 16, and upgrade it with the EX5 cards inside the set. The full line of combo has high OTK potential and has very powerful removal effects as you go up the Digivolution line. All at the same time, you're gaining a ton of memory throughout doing so as well. And all of this requires very little setup because you can simply come out as a rookie as Gabumon from Raising and then go into your full stack combo all the way in one single turn. There are times that you might not be able to do so, but you can still blast Digivolve into your MetalGarurumon Ace by leaving out your level 5 WereGarurumons in the battle area to potentially pass your opponent's turns in situations that you're not going for the OTK combo just yet. But then you can follow up afterwards and still go for multiple attacks to win your games. To quickly cover some of the downsides of this deck is that it can actually deplete its resources fairly quickly, meaning that in most games your goal is to try and finish off your opponents with that one single stack, putting all your resources and efforts into it only. But if you lose that stack, you're going to run out of gas and it's going to be very difficult to make a comeback because building a second one can take a fair amount of time because you're going to have to find all your pieces all over again. Now, for those who don't know, there is actually a restriction on this particular engine where Gabumon X and Garurumon X are going to be restricted down to 1 in March. And of course, when the time comes, we'll be making more updates to cover this particular deck again, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Definitely join the AVAULT Club so you get to see the early deck list and changes that I'll be making, and I'm definitely going to be posting a BT15 version of the support with the blue base coming up. And if you guys are just as excited to see me cover more MetalGarurumon content on the channel and top deck discussion videos like these, then be sure to subscribe and turn on that notification bell because BT15 Exceed Apocalypse is just around the corner. Since we're just talking about how good the Garurumon engine is and thanks to its consistency from EX5, BeelStarmon is also making a comeback because of this. Prior to this engine, BeelStarmon mainly relied on the Anubismon package to draw and trash cards, which requires for it to be deleted, and as many of you guys know, Anubismon inherently has jamming anyways. Or the other way is to play it with Beelstarmon and the Etemon engine to mill cards, as the main purpose is to add as many 7-cost options as possible in the trash, which helps reduce the play cost of BeelStarmon. However, the Beelstarmon and Etemon engine isn't as reliable because milling cards doesn't necessarily let you choose what particular cards end up in trash, which is why the Anubismon engine is usually preferred, but as we all know, Anubismon is currently restricted down to 1, and the Garurumon engine is the perfect replacement for that. This current version of the BeelStarmon deck can capitalize all the pros that I mentioned earlier in regards to the MetalGarurumon deck, and that is because it provides the aggressive playstyle to deal damage by making multiple attacks, meanwhile drawing in trash cards all at the same time. This helps create a very straightforward and clear win condition for the deck, which can be achieved very easily. Different to the pure MetalGarurumon deck though, the attacking combos mainly revolve around utilizing your level 5 WereGarurumon and WereGarurumon X, and BeelStar is actually played separately from the stack because you don't Digivolve with it, so you're not committing all your resources towards one single line of play. The good thing about that is that then you can spread across 2 different strategies, and once there are enough 7-cost option cards in your trash, BeelStarmon can be played for little to almost no cost, and then it allows you as a player to use any 7-cost option back from your trash for free, and then to control the board to remove your opponent's Digimon. Now, the other thing I do want to mention is that since the nature of the BeelStarmon deck does consist of many option cards which can be utilized as security bombs, and it's part of its main strategy to help change the tide of the game. The fact that you're running so many, chances are you usually can expect to see 1 to 2 security options in your security to actually help you throughout the course. This is especially effective against single stack based decks that don't have protection because it will greatly slow them down while you continue to build into your Garurumon line and keep attacking them non-stop. To give you guys a wider perspective, the Garuru X engine is just so good that it's also being used in many other future decks and in future formats such as Leviamon, Balfamon, Apocalypmon, and even Ulforce Vegemon. And this loops back all the way to the reason why Bandai had to restrict both Gabu X and Guru X down to 1 in order to prevent every single deck from abusing this particular engine. But if you ask me to pick one deck out of this entire list of the video, which I will put at the very top of the chain, there certainly is Anubismon to talk about. Anubismon has a when digivolving and main effect that is once per turn by trashing cards from your hand, it can play any purple Digimon back from the trash and can reduce the play cost all the way up to 6. Paired up with a ton of memory gaining effects in your stack, you can almost play anything for free. Anubismon alone doesn't seem to be too overpowered at first, but until you pair it up with Mervamon from BT11. That is because you're able to digicross alongside with it to further reduce the play cost, potentially and practically making it free. This also applies to stacking multiple other play cost reduction effects such as DeathXmon, where in some situations you can outright play it for 0 memory cost, and that is insane. Back to Mervamon, the main combo is that so it can also bring out 2 extra bodies and they gain blocker and rush if they have retaliation or crossart in its traits. Anubismon also has a secondary effect, which can either pop one of your opponent's Digimon that is level 5 or lower, and if nothing is deleted, you get to draw a card every time a Digimon is played via your own effects. And the even crazier thing is that this effect is not even once per turn. Leviamon is another alternative level 6 that the deck can play, giving it access to provide aggression with its security +1 effect and the capability to potentially remove multiple Digimon on your opponent's side of the board and gain memory all at the same time, which can cover more ground than just utilizing Anubismon alone. Deck is incredibly consistent as well because it has a ton of amount of draw and trash power, ensuring that you find your pieces quickly. And if your opponent is not able to deal or get rid of Anubismon immediately the turn after, the deck can then snowball so quickly to win games just by going wide and making all multiple attacks with all of your Digimon. With all the strengths covered, there are certainly a couple of weaknesses when it comes to playing this deck because it can potentially be outpaced by other decks which are just as fast, such as MetalGarurumon, or even decks like Red Hybrid, which can deal massive damage out of nowhere. Anubismon also has a tougher matchup against decks that are heavy control, especially when it comes to wide board removal, because then it can deal with the multiple bodies played via the Anubis and Mervamon combo setup, which all of them basically lack protection. But overall, Anubismon and Mervamon is a very well-rounded deck which has one of the best matchups against all the others of the current format. It is no surprise that Anubismon itself will be restricted down to 1 alongside with the Gabu and Garurumon engine when March comes around, and like you guys know, we're going to be covering more updates, so stay tuned for that. Next up, there is the Deva, 4 Sovereigns, and Fanglongmon deck. It mainly plays with level 5s, which are your Deva cards, and they're also known as subordinates of the level 6s. The level 6s are the 4 Sovereigns, which include Ibanwumon, Zuchaomon, Azulamon, and Baihumon. All 4 Sovereigns can alternatively digivolve on top of any level 5 Deva Digimon for 3 cost, or blast digivolve for free during the counter period when your opponent attacks. The red Deva cards include mainly Indramon, Sendiramon, and Pajiramon, and all these 3 basically give you the offensive style that you need with security +1 inherited effects. The blue Deva cards include Mihiramon, Majiramon, and Antilamon, which can give you memory gains when certain conditions are met. And the green Deva cards mainly provides piercing with inherited effects so that you can deal damage to your opponent's security, meanwhile taking out their Digimon. And then as for the black Devas, they give you blocker to all your 4 Sovereigns as well. The idea of the deck is to hardplay your level 5s as much as possible turn after turn, where all of them share the same common effect of on play, draw 1, and then you can play another Deva Digimon in the breeding area that is empty for free. The intention is to have your level 5 Devas in the battle area, so then you can play reactively and counter your opponent's attacks when they do so that you can go into blast digivolving into your level 6 aces. Each 4 Sovereign have different abilities when digivolving when it comes to its effects. Some of them give you different advantages that can counterplay through various situations, and some help you progress with your game win conditions a little bit faster. The deck is capable of winning with just the level 5s and 6s alone. By controlling the entire board during the entire early stages of the game, you can find opportunities to attack your opponent. While doing so, and being able to do that, you can win quickly. But there's also a final boss card of the deck, which is actually Fanglongmon. The main way to play Fanglongmon is to utilize the option card Holy Beast Great Cardinal Positions, which is 12 cost white option card that can reduce the play cost for 1 for every different named deva or 4 sovereign cards in your trash. And then afterwards, you're able to play Fanglongmon from your hand for free. And this is exactly why the deck benefits greatly from playing additional cards that can fill up the trash to help achieve to lower this play cost option as soon as possible. Otherwise, you can still actually digivolve your Fanglongmon traditionally on top of any level 6/4 sovereigns for the 4 memory cost. The purpose of playing Fanglongmon is to wipe the opponent's board with its on-play and when attacking effects, because it can potentially minus up to 16,000 DP across your opponent's entire board and Digimon for the turn. It can also trash the opponent's security when attacking based on how many 4 sovereigns Digimon you have on your side at the time as well. Lastly, it is also immune to all of your opponent's Digimon effects, giving it a wide range of protection. Therefore, playing this card as soon as possible can establish huge leads during the game, or it can greatly turn the tides from a losing situation back into a winning one. The longer that Fanglongmon stays in the battle area, the faster it is for the deck to progress towards its win condition, and not all decks can actually answer it right away. But with that all being said, the deck does have several drawbacks because it actually doesn't gain that much memory itself inherently compared to most other decks currently, which as a result limits a lot of the plays that you can actually do during your own turn. It is also exceptionally weak against decks that have built-in removal, which can deal with the level 5 deva cards in the battle area constantly before even getting the opportunity to blast Digivolve. But other than these components, the deck can fare very well against all the other decks that can't outpace it, and as a result, it can actually run them over very easily over time. Moving on, there is the Etemon and Sukamon deck, which received a really good amount of support over the last couple of sets, including the Metal Etemon from EX5. The deck has a very unusual playstyle but has a ton of irregular and unique effects for its main advantage. By doing so, the deck can capitalize off from unfamiliar situations against the opponents by turning their Digimon into a Sukamon, and as a result, it disrupts quite a number of game mechanics by changing its name and color, which can mitigate certain effects and negate certain plays from the opponent's side depending on what the Digimon that turned into poop was. By turning the opponent's big boss Digimon into 3000 DP, you can then possibly combo it with DP reduction effects to remove it very easily. The archetype itself somewhat does require resources and trash by usually having 3 Sukamon cards to yield the maximum value with other effects when you sort of play them. The core strategy is to be very reactive to the opponent's attacks, and then you would disrupt them, which is somewhat similar to the 4 Sovereigns deck. But instead of blast digivolving with ace cards, Metal Etemon is capable of setting up different trap cards at a time in the security, such as Suka's Curse or even Etemon's, to counter when your opponent attacks into it, because it can also redirect afterwards. This can lead to a chain of different follow-up plays and effects, which can be rather unpredictable and difficult for your opponents to play around or to think ahead. The deck does heavily lean towards a control style, as it has many on-deletion effects as well to further continue disrupting the opponents. The priority goal is still trying to mainly make it more and more difficult for the opponents to play by hindering their win condition instead first. By setting up a board state with Metal Etemon, King Etemon, and even multiple Sukamons, it is possible to completely shut down the opponent and prevent them from winning, or even making it extremely difficult for them to answer the setup, which then you as the Etemon player, all you need to do is to go wide and swing into their security with multiple attacks to secure the win condition. Therefore, chipping away at the opponent's security whenever possible is also something that you will need to pay a lot of attention to when playing this deck to find those opportunities. Some of the really important key components that this deck doesn't have is recyclability and recursion when it comes to grabbing cards back from the trash, because you can run out of resources, and when you do so, it can be rather problematic. The same concept applies to running out of Sukamon cards that are needed to counter against the opponent's plays, because without them, you won't be able to disrupt your opponents to narrow down their win condition, and without doing that, you're not able to achieve your win condition either with the deck. But looping back to one of the best things about this deck is that it is still very fun to play, as it offers an entirely different experience compared to all other traditional decks out there. And some of the most exciting parts of piloting this deck is that it feels like you're playing tricks to confuse your opponent and forcing them to think twice as hard in order just to solve a complicated puzzle, while you save up all your brain juices just to throw poop back at them. What other decks are you guys enjoying from the EX5 format so far? Be sure to let me know in the comments. If you want to learn more about other awesome decks, also check out my video covering the BT14 list, as many of them are still applicable for this EX5 format. Once again, don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell to stay tuned for BT15 videos, as they are going to be coming up real soon. As always, thank you so much for watching. You guys have a great day, great night, wherever you are. See you next video, and this is AVAULT signing out.